So, hi everyone, and welcome to this webinar on combining outcome mapping and outcome harvesting. While everybody's still joining, you can put your name, organization, and country in the chat so everybody can see who's in the room. There's still some people coming in, so we'll give it a little bit more. So do feel free to let everybody know your name, organization, and country in the chat. Good. Great. So, hi everyone. Welcome to this webinar on combining outcome mapping and outcome harvesting. My name is Roelis Geers. I'm an independent consultant based in Belgium, and I've been working with outcome mapping and outcome harvesting since the very beginning of these approaches. And I'm one of the outcome harvesting community facilitators, together with Connie Hoiting and Carmen Wilson-Grau. And I'm also an advisor of the outcome mapping learning community. I will be moderating this session together with Chloe. So, Chloe, over to you to introduce yourself. Chloe, you're still muted.
Hi, sorry about that. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Glorin Chid-Mensah, and I'm the chairperson of the Outcome Mapping Learning Community. I'm based in Accra, Ghana. I've been involved with the Outcome Mapping community since 2011, and it's a pleasure to collaboratively work with the outcome harvesting on this webinar. So just a few logistical issues. Today's webinar is co-hosted by the Outcome Mapping, Outcome Harvesting community. And you can find the links to both community in the chat. So the links will be placed in chat. We'll have two presentations, each followed by 15 minutes for questions and answers. So please feel free to start putting in your questions just at the beginning of the presentation. If you have questions, don't wait for the end. Put your questions in chat and we will address them at the end of the presentation. Please keep your devices muted until it's time for questions and answers. We also like to inform you that this webinar is being recorded and we'll share the recording and slides with all of you after. Thank you so much. Over to you, Hula.
Yes, thanks, Chloe. So today's webinar is indeed it's co-hosted by the Outcome Mapping Learning Community and the Outcome Harvesting Community. And so outcome mapping and outcome harvesting are sister approaches. So they are based on common concepts, such as the fact that they are actor-centered and they both focus on outcomes as changes in behavior, on contribution instead of attribution. 2 years ago, we did a webinar on the differences and similarities between outcome mapping and outcome harvesting. So if you want to know more about that, you can look back at the recording. I'll paste it in the chat for you to look at. But today, so these approaches can be used separately, but they can also be used together. And so today we will focus on some experiences of two organizations who have been combining both outcome mapping and outcome harvesting. So we're excited to introduce today's speakers. So we have Serge Bale from Triple 11. And we have Simon Hearn, who's an independent consultant and coordinator of the outcome mapping learning community. And so they will be sharing their experiences in how they have been combining both outcome mapping and outcome harvesting. So Serge, we'll start with the first case. So Serge Bale is the Director of Human Resources and Organizational Development from Triple 11, a Belgian movement that strives for global justice. And so Serge will start by explaining how they have combined the two approaches. So over to you, Serge.
Thanks, Roele, and good afternoon from Belgium. I hope everybody sees the presentation. It's clear, it's on the screen. Okay, thanks a lot. Triple 11 is an international, is a movement, a Belgian movement, but with the international department of Triple 11, our international corporations we have, indeed, we combined outcome mapping and outcome harvesting. And I would like to bring the case of our international program because we have not implemented outcome mapping, outcome harvesting at house level yet, but we do use it for a long-term program in which are involved 60 partnership corporations in Latin America, Great Lakes region in Africa, Asia, Philippines, and Indonesia, and also in the Middle East, in Syria, Lebanon, and Turkey. So with all these partners, we have a combined approach, outcome mapping, outcome harvesting. So Triple 11 is working on political issues. Well, we aim to have political impact on governments. It can be on a local level, national level, or international level, but mainly, as Triple 11 also aims to do, on national and international level. So it's quite high level impact. And of course, as you know, the context of NEAL for the moment is a quick changing context. It's highly complex political impact theories and having political impact. And we aim to focus on actor change. And that's why we started using this combination of outcome mapping and outcome harvesting. We have to say that in the beginning, we kicked off based on some very complete and multi-pages explanations about outcome mapping and outcome harvesting. But we also faced the reality within the organization. We are 60 people over here in Belgium and some people working abroad. We work with partners who are not very much into outcome mapping and outcome harvesting. So we quickly saw that we had to simplify the whole approach also. So what I'm going to present also is certainly not like it's written in many guidelines and books that we read on outcome mapping and outcome harvesting. It's it's a way forward in trying to cope with our reality. Now, we also had some principles on the meal, and I'm not going to go too much in these things, but some things are very important for us in the meal, like equal partnership. And that's also a reason why we used outcome mapping and outcome harvesting. So, outcome mapping. We kicked off with outcome mapping. For us, it's what we call the intentional design. It's the whole design, the framework, which is our basis to kick off as a common ground for what's needed in terms of monitoring later. And of course, outcome mapping fits very well with the work we'd like to do because it's all aimed at actor change at a higher level. And as it is described or foreseen in outcome mapping, we first tried to develop a desired change. And we had a desired change that is like on a very high level, but then for every country we intervene, also we have specific desired changes. We develop specific desired changes. And you can see that the desired change is actually focusing on a topic, like it's focusing on a global unjust system. And in that global unjust system, we would like to see more rights realized on socioeconomic, ecological, and democratic justice. And then there's an assumption because people as rights holders and civic society are strengthened to play a stronger political role. Local, national, international authorities fulfill their obligations, and the national and transnational private sector better respects all rights, etc. Here we've described our dream, our desired change. A complex or a difficult step for the organization was, if that's our dream, we tried to link with that dream a political theory. What's our theory of change and how we can contribute to these changes? And that was and is still a very difficult exercise because it demands from the organization to think about what are our assumptions on change, political change, on that very high level. So it's not like, in some projects, even political, in a more concrete context, it's a bit easier. But if you have to think about your assumptions on how political change on a very high level happens, it's we had quite some debates, and we're still struggling with that. Anyway, I'm not going to explain the whole theory of change over here, but it's mainly linked up with the idea that actually change comes in this context of with a system which is dominant and very destructive. Change will come from innovators. So our assumptions are mainly linked with we have to work together with innovators, with small groups who can challenge the whole system. And the more crises we'll have in that system, the more opportunity for these innovators to have impact on an early majority or a bigger majority of society. But of course, that can be challenged. And starting from that logic, we've defined also main boundary partners that we would like to have impact on. And linked with that, we've then formulated progress markers like, we would like to see political innovators to act and behave on our domains of change. Domains of change are economic justice, social, etc. If this is what we see, here, which is the case, and this is an example we used as it's for inspiration. That's a minister who comes from civil society herself, has a very activist agenda in the Philippines, and was able to change legislations and to stop mining activities. And that's the kind of change that we would like to see. And that's how we continued for three boundary partner groups, civil society itself. This is also what we like to see, civil society working together. This is an example of youth movement in Ecuador working together with indigenous movement in Ecuador. And this is exactly, and working on innovative topics, like rights of nature, for example, in Ecuador. Typically, the type of things we would like to see. And the third thing is on pro-public, etc. So that, I hope it clarifies a bit the whole logic of the outcome mapping. So linked with that, finally, is who are our allies? And what are our strategies with these allies to have impact on these actors? If we would like to see, love to see, etc., this kind of change happening with these groups, what strategies are we going to deploy with whom to have impact? And that's defined in the whole outcome mapping approach. And of course, that's then what we used as a kickoff. That's already 10 years that we use this approach in the organization. But 4 years ago, we decided to introduce outcome harvesting. Outcome harvesting was not part of our approach like 10 years ago. And because an evaluation showed, and our internal way forward showed, that actually the whole monitoring was not very much, was not easy to have it realized in terms of how can we now factually see whether these strategies are successful in line with the progress that we would like to see. And then we've been exploring a bit, and outcome harvesting came on our agenda, which was really very good for us, because then actually we started linking up this progression that we would like to see with factual change. And for us, outcome harvesting, which is again a very simplified approach compared with many theories of how to do it, it's a three-step approach. First of all, we collect outcome statements. And outcome statements for us, that's a very nice thing now, because we introduced facts. The whole year, and this is an example from Ecuador, for example, we are collecting changes which we can factually see in actor groups that we aim to change, linked with the progress we want to see. So there, then we have, it's just as an example here, and of course you can even here you can challenge the quality of that of these outcome statements, as with the Hule we've been doing a bit together in the past, and so you can challenge this one. But just as an example, facts on the 13th of September, the government of Ecuador declared something. It's a change. They never declared a temporary moratorium. It's important for us because mining activities have taken a devastating toll, etc. And it's the first time that the government took such a decision, and it's clearly linked to contributions of partners, because there have been negotiations on that, and there's a push of partners, and different strategies have been deployed to that contributed to this change. So that's what we do then the whole year in different countries, like also here in the Philippines and other things. I'm not going through these things in detail because I will not have time, but that's what all teams do the whole year round, collecting facts, significance, and contributions. And then, they also documented with, you can see this is something of a governor that vetoed something, and that's how our partner is a bit linked with that. So then all of these is collected for the moment in an Excel file, but we're really looking to much more suited digital tools to combine everything. But then everything is put into an Excel file and categorized also in a way. What period did it happen? What domain is it linked with? Like it could be linked with human rights, with socioeconomic justice, etc. Gender is linked with gender. So we can make a kind of analysis or a categorization of all these outcome statements. Was it an outcome statement that was linked with a local level, with a national level, with the international level, etc.? And which makes that we can then, after 1 year, switch to analysis of these of all these data. And we're also still need a lot of progression on that level. We're using for the moment in some countries Power BI, which then leads to this kind of visualizations a bit more, like which partners have contributed in what month to change, what the statements, were they linked with national level, international level, were how many statements are linked with governmental change or with CSO change, etc. So then we can have a bit of a visualization of all of these outcome statements. And these analyses, it's not only a visualization, we also try to synthesize a bit qualitative way, serves as a basis for interpretation and learning workshops and adapting strategic choices with our partner organizations. So we really try to have an equal partnership workshop based on the outcome, on the analysis of the outcome statements, to sit together on these strategies again of the outcome. Our usual question is, what strategies have been contributing to what type of change? And it means like then we can have a debate on some strategies did not even appear in our outcome harvesting system. So then we have to question whether that type of strategy is really useful to continue working on together. And that's then concluded in a report together. So, and every year, because it's a programmatic approach, every year we have this kind of workshops or dialogues with partners, strategic dialogue, and we adapt, if necessary, the strategies. And that's how then we continue to a next year of outcome harvesting and concluding again, which brings me to the end of my presentation.
Great. Thank you so much, Sergio. Very interesting. And I'm sure there are quite some questions on that. So we have about 10 minutes for question and answer. So any question that you have for Sergio on his presentation, feel free to put it in the chat or to raise your Zoom hand, and then you can also open your mic and speak. It's always nice to hear some voices as well, so we know who's out there in the audience. Cecily, go ahead. Cecilia, go ahead.
Yes, I'm here. I just wanted to I wanted to put my camera on. I think it's on now. Yeah, thank you so much for this. It was super interesting. In our organization, we introduced outcome mapping in 2016, and then 2 years ago, we introduced outcome harvesting. First of all, I want to say that last year I built a database in SharePoint. So if you want any pointers on how to do that, please reach out. Yeah. But my question is really, because that's something that I'm not struggling with, but something I need to work on is to see, because obviously we have a meal system around outcome mapping approach, and we have a lot of different reporting templates and so on. And then we've sort of, for the moment, what we've done is we've added outcome harvesting. But I also know that I need to remove something, right? Because we can't just keep adding to what partners need to fill out and work with us on. So maybe you could just share a little bit how it's been for you, if you also have sort of another reporting system, or if this is the only thing you do now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because that's because of equal partnership decolonization, we canceled all other reportings. So the only reporting is the outcome of the workshop together. Because actually there, the conclusion is, there we've had a reflection together on the context, the factual change that we've seen, and the strategies. So the conclusions are what strategies to continue, what strategies to change, and that's actually the reporting of our cooperation. So, and then actually we try, but that's within the framework of our program. It allows us, because we have very few demands from the Belgian government, which finances this program, on reporting. In projects, in specific projects, it might be different there, because there's much more demands from the donor to report on specific things. But within this long-term project, it's possible for us. So there's no other reporting mechanisms anymore for partners. The report itself is the report. The report from the workshop is the report from the partners.
Fantastic. Thank you.
That's nice. Yeah. It's a luxury. Okay, Steph, hi.
Hello, hi. Hi, Serge. Long time.
Hi, Serge.
Impressive. And I was interesting at a certain stage. You said, and then we do that the whole year through. Our partners, our countries are harvesting. How exactly do you do that? And also, especially, how do you keep the momentum? What has been really critical in keep doing it? Because we all know that doing once a harvest, that's probably not the hardest thing to do, but continuing doing it throughout the lifespan of a program and having everybody on board and so on, and keeping the quality is often a challenge. So I was wondering how you
that's a real challenge. It's still a challenge, though it's really bringing in a culture that outcome harvesting is the main way forward. And we've also given a bit of freedom, because we work with a team-based approach in different continents. We gave them a bit of freedom to organize, but we did say that there should be a logic agenda of regularly returning, revising during the year of outcomes that come in, and to see how the quality is, etc. Like in the Andes team, every 2 weeks they come together to watch again, to have a check again. Hey, are we still alert for the whole system? And because it's true that there are sometimes busy periods or things happen that the tempo goes a bit down, but it's just to a wake-up call or to revise a bit the quality. They have 2 weekly meetings on outcome statements, purely on getting the outcome statements and how to link. And that's still a very big challenge. For the moment, it are mainly the teams itself, though not always. It's sometimes also partner involved who introduce the outcome statements in this Excel files, etc. So the main challenge for the moment is to have during the year a more constant input from outcome statements coming from partner organizations also. That's more challenging. The teams are getting, after 3 years now, have found a system to come back very regularly on it. And although, like, Yeah, look, Great Lakes team for the moment is a bit of a challenge because everything what's happening over there in Rwanda and East Congo are also something. We had our Lebanon program, and the what happens in the context, logically also has an impact sometimes on the quality of your monitoring. But maybe that has this not too much to do with outcome harvesting, but other systems would be. So it's getting them regularly into the revising it and being very active together also on the quality, which is motivating at the end, because you see what's also we also share the outcome mapping, the outcome statements with our communication department, and actually the outcome harvesting is a constant bullet list of results that we achieve. So it can be also motivating to continuously see, oh yeah, we're collecting results.
Yeah, communication people are always happy with the outcome statements.
Mhm.
I get a lot of stories. But good to hear that you're working on keeping the quality up.
Yeah.
There's a related question here from Barbara Klugman. Hi, Barbara. And she's asking, what kind of capacity do you have internally to do the work? For example, creating the spreadsheet, etc.
We have actually we kicked off with this dynamic in the international department, and the capacities in terms of having people available for that is like we had one focal point, but it's not the main job of that person. But we very much saw it from the beginning as a transversal responsibility. So it's included in everybody's job to be involved in the outcome harvesting. And of course, the director of the department also has a huge responsibility to come back on it in terms of, is the vision, the direction clear, yearly, daily meeting with the whole team on the lessons learned and how to change. We have a yearly meeting with the whole department, but we have a weekly meeting on different topics, but one day is specifically spent on outcome harvesting. We have a steering group on outcome harvesting in the international department, which meets every 2 weeks. And there's a follow-up, and a representative from every team is there to link up with how things are going. So it needs structural investment from almost all staff involved in partner relations.
Does that answer your question, Barbara? Yes.
Thank you.
Good. Okay. And also for the Power BI search, I was wondering who's working on that. Is that like one person doing that, or is it different people?
Yeah, Power BI came on our radar a bit more recently. So actually, in the beginning, we were more like designing and drafting and ourselves on a paper sheet. But now it's getting a bit more digital. That's good. That's also because we have, but that's not specifically for the international department, but we have one person now within 1111 who's responsible for Power BI or that whole digitalization of how to present, making link between data and presentation, transferring data to presentations. And that was good to have that person, because she was the one who accompanied us to make some way forward. But now also, like 3 years ago, we have a centralized meal person or coordinator on the house level, because we also intend to upgrade outcome mapping, outcome harvesting approach to the whole house level. So we're upscaling a bit on organizational level, and that's really needed, because one challenge for us is actually that international departments cannot have. It's difficult to have a different meal approach than the other departments within 1111, because we also aim to have together impact on Belgian actors, and there's no very good common understanding on how success or change is formulated, and there we really have to move on to a next level.
Great,
but you
thanks.
need this expertise. Sometimes you need this expertise, and we also try to have these expertise as much as possible within 1111 itself, not to count too much on consultants who now and then they inspire us.
That's good.
But at the end you have to be able to integrate it into the organization, and if it stays too external, it's not easy to have a long-term impact.
Yep, great. And then Patrick is asking, how do you ensure that unexpected outcomes are identified?
Yeah, that's a difficult one still for us. Unexpected outcomes, negative outcomes also, for example. Yeah, that's something we have very few, the teams develop very few unexpected and negative outcomes. And every year it comes on the agenda on how we can work on that. And it's a pity because we really have to go, through that again with the teams, because there's still a misunderstanding a bit on, how far, unexpected outcomes and negative outcomes can be of use also, and what we exactly have to understand of that. So we really have to work on that. That's not a strong point for the moment yet. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks for sharing that. So with that, our time for the questions for this case is up. So I'm going to hand over to Chloe. But thank you very much, Serge, for that very interesting case. So over to the next one, Chloe.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Sergi, for that presentation and for the facilitation. Our next presenter is the coordinator of the Outcome Mapping Learning Community, Simon Hearn. Simon is going to give us a very interesting case on global partnership for education, knowledge, and innovation exchange. Over to you, Simon.
Thanks, Chloe, and thanks, Serge. That was great to hear more about your case. So this case is, as Chloe said, it's the GPE KICS, or the Global Partnership for Education, Knowledge and Innovation Exchange. It's a project that I've been working on as a consultant alongside my colleague Kaya Ambrose. We started working with IDRC to support this project in 2020. And we're still working with them. Well, I am. Kaya went and started working for IDRC full time. So she's flipped to the other side, so to speak. So KICS it was conceived and designed and commissioned by GPE, which is the biggest sort of global fund for education, in 2019, and that it was in response from demand from their partner countries, demand for greater evidence about innovations in education, and they're looking at innovations in teaching approaches, teacher training, education data systems, and early childhood, a few themes like that. The program is implemented and part funded also by IDRC, the International Development Research Centre in Canada. And it's set up to fund applied research, but also provides direct support to countries and facilitates learning and knowledge mobilization across country networks. So it's kind of 3 mechanisms in one program. Just a few vital statistics. It's been running since 2020 and will probably run to 2027, possibly a bit further. Working in 88 countries now. That's sort of been slowly increasing from about 60 when it started. And there's 80 research projects, half of which have finished already, and the other half have just started. There's also 4 regional hubs to facilitate regional knowledge exchange. So that's a bit about the program. You can see it's quite a big scale, over time, geography, themes, and different approaches as well. So why are we using outcome mapping and outcome harvesting? And we built in both approaches from the start. So, unlike Serge's case where he started with outcome mapping and brought in outcome harvesting later on, we're starting with both right from the beginning. And for similar reasons to Serge, really, the common principles of outcome mapping and outcome harvesting are very applicable to KICS. KICS is taking a systems perspective. GPE has a big goal for systems transformation, and KICS is sort of a part of that. It's like the research and evidence arm of GPE. And it's trying to support systems change at multiple levels. Right from local level, working with schools, education systems, education administration providers, through to sort of ministries of education and national delivery bodies. Behavior change is important because we're looking at how the different actors are working in the system and how they're working together, the relationships, etc. Seeking unexpected outcomes. The theory of change is quite broad. It needs to cover such a wide variety of projects. So looking for unexpected change is quite important, and to allow projects to find their own outcomes. Supporting learning from variation. There's variation across countries, across different approaches, across themes. So trying to support that. And then collective sense making and evaluative thinking, trying to get these projects to work together and to think about how they're contributing to systems change. So for all these reasons, outcome mapping and outcome harvesting was a natural fit. So in KICS, outcomes are defined using the sphere of influence. You might have seen this approach, especially if you've been on some trainings of ours. So for KICS, the sphere of concern is, well, very broadly, it's the education country systems, but this means a whole range of different actors from local to national level. But ultimately, it's children and young people and their education needs. And particularly looking at girls, children from vulnerable backgrounds, children from marginalized communities, etc. KICS, as I said, it focuses on knowledge generation, knowledge mobilization, and capacity strengthening. So that's its sphere of control. And it's doing that through research projects, of which there are 80 in total, 40 currently running, and the 4 regional hubs. There are some other mechanisms, but I'm keeping this a bit simple here. And then the sphere of influence, this is where we get to the boundary partners. The broad topic of, or the broad category of education stakeholders there. And that can mean teachers, it can mean administrators at district level, it can mean Ministry of Education officials, it can mean technical experts. So the research projects are working with education stakeholders which they define. Some of these are working on sort of education data projects, so they're working more at a national level. Some of them are working on teaching standards and teaching approaches. Then the regional hubs are working with country representatives. So these are separate to the stakeholders that the research projects are working with. These are, some of them are assigned, so they're selected by the country and nominated to be part of these regional networks. And some of them just come across KICS and want to be involved and attend webinars and different workshops to learn from and learn with KICS. So the outcomes really are at this level with the education stakeholders and the country representatives, and how they're relating to each other and how they're relating to others in the education systems in their countries. So taking from this, I want to focus on 3 different types of outcomes, and I chose these 3 because they provide some quite good comparisons really for this webinar. So we have, the first one is actually IDRC supporting the research projects, and IDRC wants to see strengthened capacity and greater collaboration amongst those research projects. So that's an outcome that IDRC is looking for. And then you have regional hubs influencing country representatives. and wanting to see strength and capacity, as well as knowledge use and use of innovations that are being developed and promoted in KICS. And then the research projects, as I mentioned earlier, are working with a range of stakeholders that they're defining in their own projects. And again, they're looking for strength and capacity and knowledge and innovation use. So of these three, the first two we used outcome mapping to sort of predefine some of these outcomes through progress markers. So we had a set of progress markers on each, and I'll show you some examples in a minute. And then for the second two, we use outcome harvesting. And we're using the outcome formulation style of outcome harvesting and the sort of retrospective perspective of outcome harvesting. And we call these outcomes outcome cases in KICS. And I'll talk a bit more about that. So you can see here we've got three examples, one where we're just using progress markers, one where we're just using outcome cases, and one where we are using both. So I'll just talk briefly about each. So this first one, so this is IDRC supporting research projects wanting to see strength and capacity. So we developed a set of progress markers, and we did this quite early on in the development of the MEL system. And the research projects weren't on board yet. There was still, I think the call for proposals had only gone out and the partners hadn't been selected. So we couldn't involve them in the process of developing the progress markers, but we worked with the IDRC team to develop these. And it was kind of there, what are they expecting to see from the research projects and what would they see as successful? But once the research projects had gone on board and we'd introduced this tool to them and started working with them, we did get feedback, and we worked with them to adapt and improve the progress markers. So they report against these progress markers. Then they're self-reporting, so they're reporting about their own behavior change, and they use a Google form to report these, and they're doing this every 6 months. And so we end up with a sort of a database of mini outcomes. The interesting thing here is that this tool was dropped after the midterm review. So we worked with the projects for about 2 years. And then after that, we stopped using the progress markers. The reason is because it was a low priority outcome, compared with the others. And this was too burdensome really for projects compared with the sort of value that you're getting out of it. And also there's a lot of information that's self-reported, and IDRC didn't have the capacity to validate it all. They do have other tools for monitoring grantee capacity, so this is something they're still monitoring, but they're just not using the progress markers anymore. And then so we come to the second outcome, and this is where we're using both tools. So again, just like with the research projects, we have country representative progress markers. So this is, and we worked with the hubs. So at this point, the hubs were on board, the 4 regional hubs led by different organizations and different consortia in each region. So they worked with us to define these progress markers, and it's one set of progress markers used for all 4 regions. And then we've also simplified this over time, and I think after a couple of rounds of simplification, we're sort of down to quite a minimal set of progress markers, after combining and reducing some. So again, just like with the projects, they reporting these on a 6-monthly basis. But they're also reporting outcome cases, and the outcome cases are actually tied to the results framework, whereas the progress markers aren't really tied to the results framework. There is something in there that says that they're doing it, but how many they're doing and how well they're doing is not really part of the results system for progress markers. But for the outcome cases, they're collecting to record against this. I think there's 3 outcomes. This is one example on the slide there. And you can see the indicator is the number of cases of country representatives identifying new policy and practice options. So just with like outcome harvesting, they're recording description, significance, contribution using a form in Google Forms. So this works quite well, doing progress markers with outcome cases, because the progress markers help you to break down the change into small steps. So they can get smaller sort of micro outcomes, if you like, that they can just collect over time. And then when it's time to write up an outcome case, they can use that as a data set to then look at a sort of a process of change, and their outcome case can then describe in a bit more of an analytical way that you don't get with progress markers, as well as talking about the significance and the contribution that you don't always get with a progress marker observation. So it combines that quick, let's get this observation down style with the progress markers, and then the more sort of longer thoughtful analytical approach with the outcome cases. But there are challenges, and one of them is that progress markers assume that you have an ongoing engagement with these country representatives, and for some of them they're the same people that are coming back, and they're working with over a period of time or through an ongoing course that they're running. But for others, they're just turning up to one event and then they don't see them again. So it's hard to observe any change with those. Outcome mapping assumes that you're having an opportunity to observe change, and with some of these country representatives, they just don't. But also, one set of progress markers is not quite diverse enough to cover 4 regions. With the different contexts and differences in approaches that these hubs are taking.
Simon, you have 1 minute left.
Thank you, Carmen. So just the final outcome here, where we just use outcome cases. So it's research projects of documenting outcome cases for the education stakeholders that they're working with. And they're in the same way that regional hubs are using outcome cases, they're using Google Forms and reporting 6 monthly. So for this one, they found that it's more appropriate just to use outcome cases here, mainly because trying to get to a set of progress markers for such a diverse range of projects and working with a diverse range of stakeholders themselves would be nigh on impossible. And working with each project individually wasn't an option, given that there are about 40 of them at any one time. So this approach suited that scenario much better, because they can just think about retrospective change rather than defining the progress markers ahead of time. So the outcome cases, that they're broad enough to capture a range of different stakeholders, a range of different outcomes that are coming from those. But it also encourages precision, learning, and reflection. The style of the outcome statements and outcome harvesting really forces you to reflect and formulate very carefully your outcome. But you also end up, just as Serge presented his database, they have this in KICS, and they've got, I think, 500 or 600 outcome cases now documented across 5 years of work. So you've got a large data set there that they can do some interesting things with, and there's an evaluation that's I think it's just coming to an end now, but it used some AI analysis on that data set, I think with some mixed results. So I don't think the technology is quite there yet, but certainly some potential. And then finally, just the challenges. So grantees were unfamiliar with outcome mapping and outcome harvesting. So there's a steep learning curve. So quite a sort of steep training schedule, and having to refresh training because team members are changing year to year. So there's an annual cycle of training providing to the projects. It's quite a heavy investment early on to get the projects up to speed. But once they got there, then and they understood the benefits, then they were really flying and really appreciated it. Yeah, and I shall leave it there for now and open up to any
Thank
questions.
you very much, Simon. This is a very exciting. I mean, I find your case really very interesting. I think I'll have a lot of personal questions to ask you, but we want to go on to see some of the questions that you have. So if you have any questions, please let us know. Those who want to speak, just raise your hand. But I'll start with Michelle's question. She said, I'm interested in Simon's mention of the progress markers being dropped at midterm due to a sense of overload. I've only combined outcome mapping and outcome harvesting once, and it clearly did involve similar risks of overload. So the question she has is, if you can help her find out how you prioritize and streamline where needed to avoid overload when you have so many of these progress markers that you are tracking.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think in this case, whoever's recording the data has to be incentivized to do so. And I think in this case, the projects weren't that interested in their own capacity strengthening. They were recording how they're developing new research uptake strategies and improving their relationships with their stakeholders. This is all stuff that they know they don't need to record in this level of detail. So that's why it didn't really work. And it just detracted from the other data about what they were interested in sort of how their stakeholders are changing. And we'd rather them invest time in that if that's what they're interested in, and we only have a certain amount of their energy to give to monitoring. So that's why, yeah, I think so. In this case, it's really tying it to what the projects themselves are incentivized to monitor.
Patrick also has a question. Thank you, Simon. Patrick, do you want to ask your question? You prefer for me to read it?
I can read it as well. But yeah, Patrick's a good question. So yes, there were changes to the theory of change after the midterm review. They simplified the theory of change essentially. They reduced the number of outcomes in total. They combined. So when we first set up the theory of change, we made it quite actor-centered and split it up based on different actors. But that ended up being a bit too, I guess, difficult to communicate. So they streamlined it more for communication purposes and just for ease of also optics. Reducing the number of outcomes makes it seem like it's a simpler system. So instead of splitting up between the education stakeholders and the country representatives, which were split up because they're two different mechanisms, they just combined those outcomes, and they're split up in the data analysis when you get to it. So yeah, those are the main simplifications.
Simon, I have a question of my own. I found it quite interesting that one of the things you looked out for in this project was to seek unexpected outcome. Is there some unexpected outcome that just hits you that you'd like to share with us? Something you didn't expect, but you kind of distracted? Is there something like that you want to share with us? Sorry.
Yeah, you put me on the spot.
Sorry.
I can't pick out particular outcomes because I'm not sort of involved in any project particularly. So I'm looking at a database of 500 outcomes.
All right.
So, but I mean, the way I think that they sort of focus on unexpected outcomes is mainly because they don't define in fine detail the outcomes to begin with. The theory of change is quite broad. Degrees of stakeholders are very broad. So it's only when you get down to the project level does that actually make sense and bring meaning, because they tell you particular actors working in particular ways. So in that sense, when you're looking at the data, it's all sort of new. You're kind of exploring new territory because they're kind of creating the links between the theory of change elements the links that didn't really exist before.
Thank you. Is there any other question? If not, I will just say a big thank you to Simon for sharing your case with us, and to remind you all that we do have, I have Steph. Steph has a question. Says,
It's not a question, Chloe. It's just an announcement.
oh,
No worries.
okay. All right, go on. You want to say it? Steph, go on.
Oh, I just want to. We were talking about data visualization and storing and databases and so on, and we're using different tools. In one of the webinars months ago, I think, a few webinars ago, in the outcome harvesting community, I presented a dashboard system that can be used, and that is specifically developed for outcome harvesting and other narrative methods. Just wanted to share that.
Yeah, I think that is
Thank you,
important for any project that working at, especially at this scale, when you're going to be getting hundreds of these outcome statements back, you need a way of managing that data and making sense of it quickly.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Simon, for your very interesting project. And I think I'll just hand over to Hula. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Chloe, and thanks, Simon and Sergio, for those very interesting presentation. We've come towards the end of our webinar, but before we let you go, we have a few exciting events coming up from the outcome mapping and outcome harvesting community. So we just wanted to share those with you. I'm going to share them here on the screen. Simon, do you want to explain the first ones to us?
Yeah, thanks, Hula. I'm taking off my consultant hat and putting on my OMLC coordinator hat. Yeah, so there's 2 events coming up later this year. We mentioned this in the previous webinar. The OMLC Learning Lab is the first time we're doing a sort of mini conference in about 10 years. And this is very relevant to this webinar because the theme of the lab is on methodological bricolage, combining methods using outcome mapping and outcome harvesting with other approaches, and exploring what the options are and what works well and what the implications are, and yeah, really hopefully getting into detail on some good cases like we've had today. So that's going to be later this year in November, December. We haven't finalized the location yet, but that will be announced hopefully in the next few weeks, and we'll get a save the date out for you. And similarly, we have a training. We usually do a training every year. This year's training will be in late November in Sri Lanka. And again, we don't have precise dates, but look out for those. That's going to be an outcome mapping training that will include some outcome harvesting and also having a focus on gender equity and social inclusion. And Sonal, who is in the audience, is going to be involved in leading that.
Great. Okay, thanks, Simon. And then the outcome harvesting community is organizing an exchange meeting. So this is actually the first live get-together of the outcome harvesting community. So we had many online exchanges, webinars and discussions and things like that. But there was a big request to also get together face-to-face. So we're meeting in Arusha, Tanzania. The exact date has to be set, so we're still looking to several things of when to organizing it, but it will be either April or July 2026, so do mark that already in your calendars. So it's not a training, so it's really an exchange meeting, which means it's not consultants just providing the content, but it's really from everybody who's using outcome harvesting, for them to exchange on outcome harvesting, on their use, and to dig deeper into certain aspects of outcome harvesting. And we're very happy we can host this at the ActionAid Training Center in Arusha, because it's a place where in the middle of nature, where you can also sleep, you can stay there overnight. So this is also nice so that we can really hang out together in the evenings as well and do some networking, some community building there. So we will keep you updated on when exactly it will take place. So thank you very much. So we're looking forward to seeing you at those events and also on future webinars. So thanks everybody for joining. Thanks again to the presenters, and see you all next time.
Thank you.
Thank you and
Bye,
goodbye.
everyone.